Hey everyone, Chris Knott here with Reprogrammed, and today I'm going to bring you the kettlebell workout that you need to know if you are 40 or over. I've been getting a lot of texts and emails lately asking questions about kettlebell workouts in specific for a lot of my execs who need to travel, a lot of guys that end up in a CrossFit type scenario. And kettlebells are nothing more than a tool in your toolbox, but they can be a very versatile tool, and so I want to really dive into that today. All right, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the kettlebell and its pros and cons. All right, the kettlebell being the nature of this, we have a handle, of course. We can actually grab from the handle. You can grab from the sides. We can actually grab underneath. We can use it like any other type of barbell, dumbbell type of apparatus for curls, for rows, for whatever. So it's a great tool, especially if we have a variety of weights. But we can also get into a lot of our rotational work. We can get into our pressing. We can get into our Olympic lifts even to add in some extra power and explosiveness, which again, if you are in your 40s or over, we may have lost a lot of athleticism. So this is a great point to actually quickly talk about, in that with the predominance now of sports like pickleball, for example, I've been having to write a lot of articles on the increase of injuries like Achilles injuries, tendonitis, patellar tendinopathy, those types of things. And the reason being is we tend to get out of sports in, let's say, our early 20s, let's say you're done with college, but you hit the gym. So maybe you're one of my 40-year-olds, you've been hitting the gym, maybe you look pretty good, but we haven't been doing the tendon strength, and therefore now you go pick up a sport again like pickleball because you still have that competitive desire within you. Next thing you know, you make that jump, that cut, whatever, and we've lost the power, we've lost the ability of having the tensile strength within the tendons, and that's a whole other issue. So if you want to learn more about that, please go to my other video of talking about tendon health and how we train tendons differently than we do the muscles, because muscles will respond in a slightly different fashion than how our tendons and our connective tissue do. However, with kettlebells, we can actually work multiple attributes. Again, we can work some power and explosiveness, we can work strength, we can work hypertrophy, and we can work conditioning with this one tool. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, the first thing that we're going to talk about with kettlebells is the basic kettlebell swing. If you only had 5 minutes in a time, you can do this one swing exercise to get a tremendous cardiovascular, quick, heart pound and pump, as well as work a lot of the full body and the posterior chain, which is so detrimental in most of our society because of all the sitting, all the driving, all the forward postures on our phones. So a kettlebell swing is a great way to work our hinge pattern and to get some conditioning all at the same time. So to do that, let's first look at the side. When I have my kettlebell here and I'm holding it right here, I am not doing this with my arms, okay? I'm not lifting from the shoulders per se. Now, can we do exercises, of course, like upright rows that's going to specifically work the deltoid? Yes, we can do that. However, for the kettlebell swing, I should be able to hold this literally with one finger, assuming it's not super heavy, and I can go into my hip hinge pattern and notice I'm barely holding on to the kettlebell. All of the motion is really coming from my hips and this hip hinge pattern. So let's talk about how we're going to get into that. Okay, so number one, I'm going to have the kettlebell on the floor. I'm going to have it centered beneath me, and it's going to be out in front, because when I reach out, I'm going to first start with like an RDL type tutorial. So we're going to have a semi-wide outside of shoulder width stance. I'm going to have a soft knee bend, and then I'm really just going to hip hinge, which again, if you've watched my RDL video, especially in the Smith machine, you've seen how we maintain this neutral spine. We're going to hip hinge, which then bends me down because I'm sticking my butt out. Now, what I'm not doing is sticking my butt out this way. Again, go back to my RDL videos, and that way you can see how we use the abs and the glutes to control our pelvis position so that when I hip hinge, this does not move. It is just this right here. Also notice I'm not really bending my knees much more. I'm not squatting down. It's literally just a hip hinge. So from this RDL hamstring glute stretched position, I'm gonna reach out and grab my kettlebell. From here, because it's out in front of me, when I pick it up, it's going to, by gravity, start to come back. If I were already here, I would have to stand up with it and then get it to go. However, we're gonna keep the kettlebell out in front. Again, I'm gonna start with my hip hinge. When I pick this up, it's gonna swing back into me, and there's my first catch. Just the gravity of the kettlebell swinging into me brings it underneath me. Now, from the front, when you see the catch, again, hip hinge, grab, when I pick it up, boom, there it goes. And I'm stopping it here so you can see how my forearms are actually hitting my thighs. So they're gonna come in, I'm gonna catch my forearms with my thighs. Now from here, I'm gonna extend my hips rapidly, which then pushes my forearms slightly, and there is my swing. So once again, from the side, the kettlebell's in front, I hip hinge. I'm gonna do this in slow motion here. So it's gonna come back, I'm gonna catch, but watch, I'm gonna now drive from my feet to the floor, push this way with my hips, again, like my RDL, that pushes the kettlebell and gets some momentum. The faster I snap my hips, the more I can pop it up. But again, I can hold on with literally one finger, and it's all the momentum of the kettlebell combined with the hip hinge. All right, after I get the kettlebell moving in the hip hinge, as it's coming down, it's just a timing issue. As the kettlebell's here, I gotta come down and start my hip hinge again, so I'm back in my start position where my forearms can be caught by my thighs, and I have to pop. So it's a catch, pop, catch, pop, catch, pop. If I don't, right, I'm gonna have my timing off. Again, catch, pop, forearms into the thighs. Notice I'm not pulling, I'm not bending. I should have hardly any tension in the deltoids themselves. Now, will I get some stability? Absolutely, which is a great element of this, because as this is flying away from me, the backs of my shoulders have to work. But as you notice, in the swing, what is the primary muscles we're using? Hamstrings, glutes, back, posterior. Again, if I'm hunching this way, because I don't have good lat engagement, right, I'm gonna start to round, and it's gonna mess up my timing. If my lats are engaged, my hips are tucked, and I'm just hip hinging, then my whole torso moves like a 2x4, and my arms just naturally swing. That is the basic kettlebell swing. And if you set a timer and do that swing for 5 minutes straight, let me know how you feel afterwards. I guarantee your breathing's gonna be through the roof, your heart rate's gonna be up, your posterior chain's gonna be burning, and that alone, there's very few exercises where if I said you only had 5 minutes to do, and this is why there is no excuse to not do anything. You can have a single kettlebell at your home. You can wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, go out and do a 5-minute kettlebell swing, and you have already done more than the average person does who just sits on their butt, gets up, has a crap breakfast, if no breakfast at all, and then heads off to work. So you will feel a lot more accomplished by that. It serves as a great warm-up. It's a great finisher. So if you've already done a hard workout and you want to have that mental challenge at the end, set the timer for 5 minutes and go after it. That is your kettlebell swing. Okay, after we learn the basics of the kettlebell swing, now we can start doing variations. And there's two types of variations. There's the swing itself, and then there's the more of like a catch and press, or when we get into the Olympic lifts, like our cleans or our snatches, which there's a slightly different technique if you've done barbell hang cleans, barbell cleans, barbell snatches. The technique is slightly different when you get to the kettlebell by the nature of the tool. So if I start with a normal swing, like I'm gonna just do a one-arm swing so you can see, okay? I'm gonna catch, pop, catch, pop. If I really pop, it can come all the way up and kind of slam over. So you can go from a full swing into a snatch, and the snatch is actually going to be easier in terms of a smoothness than a clean. Again, a clean is going to be more in this position. A press would be pressing from the clean to the top position, but the snatch is a catch all the way up to top. So I can swing it forward, catch, pop it back up right to here. Catch, swing, catch, swing. So this would be more of my swinging snatch, if you will. Now, the timing, of course, is how the kettlebell flips over and gets to the back of my arm. Now, if my timing's not good, it clunks, and you will definitely beat up this side of your arm and get it a lot tougher during this process. If you have a nice smooth swing, you can feel where you can punch through so that when it comes, it's not boom, clunking here. I'm coming through and then carrying it, but then I have to stop it with shoulder stability. So a couple key pointers here. When I'm in this top position, I always want to shrug. As I'm pressing through here, I have a lot more stability. Okay, that's number one. To bring it back down, I just come forward and I want to give a little bit of a flip of the wrist, come up and again catch and punch. That's the first thing, is stopping it from the shoulder with a shrug. Now, the second thing is as this is coming through, we don't just want to keep my hand here and let the weight come so it clunks like this. What I want you to think about is a punch. So as this is coming through, I'm actually going to punch up. So it comes, but then watch my hand. Instead of letting this come down, I'm actually going to punch. So it creates a tighter circumference, and as it comes up, the kettlebell, instead of coming down on my wrist, it actually slides a little bit. Still gonna clunk a little bit, however, it will be a lot less on your forearms as it comes over and give that little, almost think like a J motion, punch, whatever connects with your mind the most so you can feel that. Now, where that really matters is when we go into cleans and snatches, if we do it more in a traditional sense. So again, the kettlebell, by the very nature, is meant to swing. And when you see good people with kettlebells, they're doing mostly hip hinge swing type variations. However, I can also come from the floor and I can come straight up with an elbow up like I'm doing an actual barbell type of clean. If I come up with an elbow up high and I go to flip, now I have to drop underneath with the same kind of mechanics as an Olympic lift, but this is where that flip over and that punch really matters. So it looks more like this. I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna come straight up, elbow high, punch, and you can see that in between here where I get this flip, that's the momentum, but as it's coming through, I have to punch and come through. Now, if I come up under the catch and I stop, that's just my clean. I can come up, boom, and I can be right here at the shoulder and I can catch. And then I can turn into a press, whether it's a shoulder press or if it's a heavier kettlebell, again, I can use my legs into more of like a push press. Now, if I do that all again, come up, catch, boom. As I'm catching, I can also drop and turn that right into my press. So now we have a clean in press. So all together, I'm here, I'm gonna go elbow high, catch, squat, press. When I come down, I repeat the opposite. I come down as it's coming to my shoulder, I catch it with my legs. I'm gonna give a little bit of a flip and squat back to the floor. All together, elbow, catch, press, squat, catch, flip, squat. One more time, elbow, catch, press, catch, flip, and squat. That would be more of our traditional clean and press type of motion. Now, we can do that for higher reps and turn it more into like an anaerobic type of workout. If you want more conditioning, again, you might be at a gym where you only have light kettlebells. If I have light kettlebells, I have to do more reps and I can work on the explosiveness. Again, I'm going kind of slow to show you the mechanics, but if I really were to, boom, you can see it's going all the way up, because if I'm jumping with it, boom, it's all the way up here. So that would be more explosive. If I want to do more repetitions, I might slow it down just a little bit. Again, boom, catch, press, down. You just kind of turn into a machine. Boom, 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 and keep it going. So now I'm getting all of this torso stability. I'm getting all these squats in. I'm getting these pressing. I get the shoulder stability. You can see how this is immediately a total body type of workout. So again, if you're limited on time, if you're limited on space, or if you only have the one tool, we can do a lot with it. Now, if you're at a gym that has heavy kettlebells, we can turn it into a much more advanced workout with our cleans and with our presses. The technique stays the same. I can either do a heavier swing up to the snatch, or I can do my straight clean and press with a heavier kettlebell, and I can focus on one arm, but we can also focus on two. Now, when I have two, again, this would be an advantage of being at a gym that, let's say, doesn't have big, heavy kettlebells, but they have sets of smaller kettlebells. So here's the trade-off. I can either do a single, and I can also be working the stability for my obliques and my hips and some of the lateral work as I'm doing one arm at a time and then the other arm. And I can see if I have any imbalances. Maybe I have one shoulder that's much weaker than the other. However, if I have two, I can do the exact same motions, but now it's a different set of kind of mental focus in the coordination. So all together, I'm gonna start with my same kind of either swing, so I can go wide. Again, it's gonna be out in front because I'm gonna pick it up, I'm gonna start my swing, and after I have my swing, I can come all the way up in the snatch, and it's gonna look something like this. So I'm here, boom, swing, there's my punch. Now my options are, I can either come down the shoulders, swing, catch, right from here, down the shoulders, swing and catch, or I can swing it all the way from the top. So once again, if I'm out in the front, I'm gonna catch into my thighs, boom, there's my swing, my pop, and I can come down, big catch, boom, here we go, big catch, boom. What's the difference? If I come down and swing to the front, whether I go straight to the floor or I wanna go into my catch for the next one, it's a smaller arc. So when you see it from the side, notice this, okay? I'm gonna come here, boom, catch, but if I come down, watch, it's not gonna get too far out in front of me, so it's an easier catch on my back. If I go all the way from the front, look at the arc, boom, right there. So what's the difference? When I have a long lever, this is really trying to pull me forward, which means you have to be prepared for it. You have to be fast. You have to get ready to get in that position. And it's like a rubber band. If you pull that rubber band tight, when you let it go, it wants to shoot off. So if I have all this kinetic energy coming that I catch and absorb, I also have to, boom, throw it back up. Again, a lot more powerful, a lot more explosive, a lot more motor recruitment. So when you do that, be ready for it. Again, go to your level of experience. But again, if I have really light kettlebells, I might want that to keep more explosive. However, if I want to be safer, protect my back, if you're not so certain this is new to you, flip right here, because now I can stay more upright. Again, I'll do it one more time. I want you to see how much more the wide bends me over for the same exact weight compared to when I do more of a clean catch. So here, again, boom, boom, here we come down the front, bam, right there. Now, if I come down here, watch how more upright I can stand. Boom, right here, back here, boom. Now, even with the short one, I can work on being quick. So maybe I don't have a big, whoa, bend like this. However, if I'm here, I can pop and just really work on fast hips. again, it's not about right or wrong. It's about the tools you have, your ability. It's about what kind of goals do we have for that given workout. Do I really want to have a strong posterior chain, and therefore I'll probably do less reps? So a set of 10 of that is gonna be plenty. Whereas if I do more of the clean catch and up, I can be more quick, I can do more volume. So like maybe I do a set of 20 for the exact same weight. Again, these are all options that you can play with. I'm just showing you the technique today and the understanding of how you can implement the tool. All right, for this workout, I'm gonna give you a little bit more advanced swing technique that adds a little bit of rotation into it. The first ones I showed you, the basic swing, and then your cleans and presses, they were all in the frontal plane, okay, sagittal frontal plane. With the rotation, now we get a little bit of this, which again is important. A lot of times in the gym, we tend to be in this plane and in this plane, and we don't get a ton of rotation. But in real life, rotation is super important. When you walk, you don't walk like this, you actually rotate. When I run, there's rotation. My golfers out there, my baseball players, pickleball, tennis, all this is rotation. So with a kettlebell, this is one of my absolute favorite primary swing patterns with a rotation, and it looks like this. I'm gonna start with a single kettlebell. Again, I'm gonna keep my nice wide stance. I'm gonna start the motion with a hip hinge, but I'm actually gonna pass it through my legs. So as I come down with a hip hinge, instead of catching straight this way, I'm starting at a little bit of an angle, and it's gonna come through, and I'm actually gonna switch hands right here. So as this is coming through, you can see I'm already loading for all my, again, baseball, golf, everything is a rotation and a load and a transfer. And that's what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna come down, boom, there's my load. I'm on this foot here. Notice my knees are not collapsed in. They stay open just like our normal squat form. As this kettlebell passes through, now it's right here on the back arm. What I'm gonna do here is now I'm gonna take all this force and rotate. Think like a big forearm in tennis, okay? I'm not talking about forehand form right now. I'm just talking about this idea of a big looping, and again, it doesn't start from the arm, it starts from the hips. So after I pass through, my hand's back here, and I'm gonna throw my hips from this hip, really coming from the ground, which is going to swing the kettlebell out and up, and it's actually gonna come up, and I'm gonna give myself a high five with it. So far, I comes through, I catch, I've loaded the leg, I'm gonna pop the hips, give myself a high five. And then from there, it's going to come down, and now it's gonna go in the other direction. So all together, it looks like this. I'm gonna stop at the high five. All right, so I've got my kettlebell, I've loaded, rotate, boom, there's my high five. I'm catching, just like this. Once more, come through, load, boom, high five. Since I'm not switching hands on top, this hand kind of guides it, so it kind of throws it back out slightly. It's not a lot. It's gonna come out, and guess what? Now I'm ready for the other side. So now as it comes through, I've loaded this. Rotate, high five, back through, catch. Rotate, high five, back through, rotate, back through, rotate, back through. There's my high five, catch, and high five. Notice we're going low to high, high to low, rotation, lateral shift, one leg, other leg. You can't beat this exercise for rotational sports applications. All right, so one particular exercise that I do want to highlight with the kettlebell is a goblet squat. It gets its name because we're actually going to hold it from the bottom here. Looks like one of those old big Viking type of goblets. We're gonna keep it close to the chest, and then I'm gonna use a wedge. Ideally, the higher the better. This is my 45-degree wedge. Works great because we're gonna do more of a knee forward, vertical type of sissy squat. So with the weight out in front, it allows me to keep a perfectly vertical upright chest, unlike most squats where I'm forward. So the goblet or the kettlebell is out in front as a counterbalance, which also loads my thighs. And notice I can sit all the way down and I'm getting a great thigh workout. Now, you have heard me say before that for most people, we have to actually emphasize more glutes and hamstrings because most people have quads, but they don't have the glutes and hamstrings yet. So if you're still one of those people, I do recommend that. However, I wanted to point out this particular tool because we're talking about kettlebells. On top of it is, I mentioned earlier, tendons, patellar tendon in particular. So if we are going to work our patellar tendon more, we have to do two things in particular. Number one, we have to load it over time because even in like quick plyometrics, it's not enough time for the tendons to actually build a lot of cross-sectional fiber. With traditional weight training, we tend to be moving like a normal set of 10. And again, the muscle will fatigue and then the tendon takes a little bit longer. So we also need to lengthen it. Now, the patellar tendon has to go in more of a quad dominant position, which is a knee forward, which is also why I'm telling you to elevate the heels, because that takes pressure off the front of the knee. At the same time, it allows us to get the appropriate amount of dorsiflexion at the ankle so that the knees can actually go forward without the heels coming off. But my recommendation for your goblet squats is a lot more time under tension. Again, we're not picking up, 200-pound goblet squats, and our quads can do a lot of weight, ideally, with our heavy squats. So this is a great finisher to your workouts to actually work a little bit more of the tendon strength. So I'm gonna drive those knees forward, but I'm gonna come down probably almost like a minimum 5, more like a 10 count, and we're gonna come up super slow. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Same, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when I come up, notice I'm not locking out my legs. I'm gonna go right into my next rep, which keeps tension on those muscles and that tendon the entire time. You give me 10 reps like this at that count, and then tell me how your knees feel afterwards in a good way. Here is a bonus exercise that I'm going to show you in this series today that not many people know or teach. Again, another weak muscle group that doesn't get trained a ton in traditional exercises is the groin and adductor. Again, if you're over 40 and we're trying to bulletproof our body, we've got to work the adductors, we got to work the groin. It works in conjunction with your hamstrings. And again, from all the tightness, all the sitting, all the traditional linear type of motions, this is very weak. So this is a 2-for-1. We're gonna work the adductors in the hip, and we're gonna work some shoulder stability with some balance. So here's what this looks like. First thing I'm gonna do, start light with this. This is actually probably pretty heavy. This is a 26-pound kettlebell. I'm gonna start with a normal shoulder catch position, and then after I get my leg up, so I'm gonna use a bench. Now, as you get more and more advanced, the leg can come up higher. Normally I do this and I'm at 90 degrees. That's kind of the ideal. So this right here offers some support, and that's how we're gonna get the adductor or the groin area. From this position, I'm gonna press and shrug straight over the shoulder. Now, as we get into the Turkish Get-Up next, there's some similarities in how this humerus bone rotates within the shoulder. But here's the simple way to perform this exercise. I'm gonna bring my hand, I'm gonna put it right on my thigh. I'm going to start to twist. As I twist, I'm gonna look up to the kettlebell, and my hand is gonna go from a front position, rotate back. As I do this, I'm gonna come down with my hand, touch the top of my foot, stand back up, and rotate. So again, look up, rotate, slide, touch, and up and rotate. That rotation is a ton of shoulder stability. The balance on the foot, the groin on both sides get work. Now, one little point with this exercise is we want to make sure that the kettlebell stays directly above the shoulder through the entire range of motion. any range of motion where that kettlebell starts to sway, because as you bend down, it likes to come to the front, it likes to come to the back, down to the side. That's more that the shoulder has to work to keep it in position. So that's why that rotation is very important. But we want to go slow. We want to keep it directly above the shoulder, because what you'll find is you come down, if this falls, it's going to fall with it. It happens, don't worry about it, but it is a pointer. We want to get good rotation within the shoulder, keep the kettlebell directly above the shoulder, and that will help this exercise tremendously. When you first start, you might not get down to your foot. You might only get to your knee. That's okay. Go as far as you can, hold it, come back up, and try to do more repetitions. And every time, get down a little bit further and a little further until you can touch your toes. Once you can touch the top of your foot, then you can start adding more weight to the kettlebell. All right, for our last exercise in the series, again, one of the tried and true kettlebell exercises, the Turkish Get-Up. So I'm really going to go through this because I've seen this done and executed improperly so many times. People get injured doing it, but it is a fantastic exercise for total body stability, torso, trunk rotation, shoulder stability, all sorts of good stuff. And again, we want to be able to get off the ground when we're old, and we have to be able to do other things like my wrestlers, my MMA guys, football players, all sorts of stuff. So it's just a really practical exercise that is a great finisher of the day. I'm going to start with the kettlebell. If you get really good at this, I've used this with my athletes where we've actually held straight on barbells up to 135 pounds doing this exercise. And I've seen some pretty amazing people do even more. So it is possible. Here we go with the Turkish Get-Up. All right, to get set up with the Turkish Get-Up, we're going to be lying down. We want the kettlebell relatively close to our side, not directly to our side, but relatively close to the shoulder. Here's the setup. For whatever side that I am going to stand up, I want to have 1 foot bent, 1 foot straight. The kettlebell is actually going to go in the side as the bent knee. I'm going to switch it over here because as you get to heavier kettlebells, I'm actually going to show you how to even get into position. So being that the kettlebell's on this side, I would actually be standing up this direction away from the camera. However, so you can see the kettlebell, I'm going to put my leg on this side because I said it's going to go on the same side as my arm. But to get in, I'm actually going to roll to my side. I'm going to grab. So again, my bottom arm is the grabbing arm. The top hand comes to support it. I'm actually going to lock in my lats, bringing my hands towards my chest. And then I'm going to keep this together as I use my abs and my weight to roll directly so the kettlebell sits over my shoulder. From here, I'm going to take both hands and I'm going to press straight up. That's how I get in position, especially with a heavy kettlebell. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to come to the side, laying on my side, shoulder blades together, bottom hand grabs, top hand supports, roll onto my back, kettlebell comes to the shoulder, hands are centered on my chest, punch. Now I'm supported. The kettlebell just rests on the back of the arm. Also notice my wrist here. It's not flopped down here. Again, if you look at my bench press tutorial, same thing with our grip. We want to squeeze, knuckle up because we're always punching through the weight. So I've got this flat wrist directly over the shoulder, same side leg is up. Now for the rest of the motion, I'm going to switch sides so you can see the rest of the progression. Okay, for the rest of the progression, we've brought the kettlebell to the chest. I've punched it up. I've got the same side here. I'm going to have my opposite elbow directly out to the side. Now, the heavier the kettlebell, the more this foot might have to actually go outside because we're going to use this foot to press, and I'm going to use my obliques and abs to crunch at the same time. So I'm actually going to crunch in this angle while pressing with my foot. And what that does, watch this. I'm going to press, crunch, and I'm rolling onto the elbow. So I have to come in this angle. You can see where my chin is going. I'm following my chin here, which gets, again, this over my shoulder, and I'm over my bottom elbow. This is step one. Now, from this position here, I have to crunch now with these obliques here so that I can press up and come directly up to my hand. I don't want there to be a lot of motion. I'm not moving my feet. I'm not moving my hand. So notice as I press, it's almost like a tricep press as I create a center of gravity that comes forward with my abs. So again, I'm holding here. I'm stable through my legs. I'm gonna rock and press, and my hand never moved. So now I'm up on the hand and sitting on my hip. That is step number 2. Okay, once again through, I'm going to use my foot to press, crunch with my abs, follow my chin out to my elbow. That is number 1. Now I'm gonna press through my hand, crunch more. Now I'm up to the hand, step 2. Step 3, I'm gonna use my foot and my hand to create a tripod and lift. So it's like, here's my breakdancing move. I am getting my hip off the ground, creating space for this leg to now come all the way through. So I'm gonna drag it back so I'm on my knee. Now, I wanna get back far enough so that my knee is underneath my hip. This is one of the common mistakes I see. Because people move their hand to weird positions, now my tripod is weird. So that's why at the start, my elbow is straight out. So as I come up to my elbow and then I press my hand, I'm making triangles with my body. So here is a triangle so that when I lift my hips, I've got plenty of room. If I can't lift my hips, I can't get this leg through. So I see people doing this scooting thing and they don't get their knee. So now when they come up, they're in a weird position. They're trying to move their knee, or they're like sitting back like this and the knee is not underneath the hip. The setup is what's important. Again, if I have my elbow out, come to the elbow, come to the hand, press to the hand, I've got my triangle, lift the hips. Now, knee comes all the way through. See how I get it all the way back? Knee is underneath the hip. From here, step 4, again, I use these obliques to crunch up and I make myself upright. Head comes to the bicep. And as you can see, the next step, I'm just gonna stand up from my lunge position. So I have to be stable. Notice I'm not moving my feet. I just lunge up. Now, if I reverse that, everything comes the same back down. I lunge back to my knee. I'm in my good position here. I go and I find my hand. I tripod up so my leg can come through, and I'm sitting back to my hip, come to my elbow, and I can come to my back. I'm going to show you with the kettlebell now, because you'll see, just like when I described with the adductor exercise, that kettlebell needs to stay directly above my shoulder. If the kettlebell floats away from my shoulder, I'm going to drop it. Again, if you go to drop a kettlebell, it's not a big deal as long as you don't drop it on you. So if you're going to lose a kettlebell, drop it away from you. Okay, you should be in a good, safe area where it's okay to drop the kettlebell. It's a big piece of steel. You're not going to hurt anything unless you're working out on a glass floor. So all together, I'm pressing through the shoulder to create that stability. Foot, elbow, I'm going to press and crunch. I'm on my elbow. Up to my hand, I've got my triangle. Lift, knee comes through. Now I'm underneath my hip with my knee. Now I straighten up. Notice I rotate. There's that corkscrew again. I'm nice and straight. Again, I'm not gonna move the leg. I'm gonna press through my toe and this foot to stand. Again, to come back down, I'm gonna do a backwards or reverse lunge, down to the knee, control it. Again, I'm gonna come down to the hand, but notice this kettlebell, I have to create this awareness so it stays directly above my shoulder, and this is where I get all this shoulder stability. So I come down to the hand. Now I'm gonna lift in tripod, leg comes through, I'm on my hip, come down to the elbow. Again, this is still above my shoulder. From here, I control the descent with my abs, back to my back. Now, if I wanna really work shoulder stability, I can do multiple reps here. Again, elbow, hand, tripod, knee, boom, up, back, down, knee, hand, tripod, kick, elbow, back. Multiple repetitions. If you're going for strength, heavier kettlebells, do singles, okay? A A lot of times we'll typically do sets of 3 to 5 on the Turkish Get-Ups. Now, one last little point, I'll switch the arms so that as I've come back down to this position and here, and it's time to put the kettlebell down, okay? Ideally if you can let it fall, however, it's always best to come down to the chest and then roll back to your side, just like we picked it up at the very beginning. That is your Turkish Get-Up. Have fun, enjoy it. It is a great exercise. Make sure it's part of your routine.